Right, hello, Lexi Myers, hi. Melanie, hi. I'm on. Finally, can you hear? Give me a clue, give me a message. Right, I've had to get rid of the computer and I'm now on iPad. Yeah! Okay, yes, it's working. Josie Waldron, hello. Hi. Okay, so I'm looking now. I don't even know where the camera is. I think I'm looking at the camera now. Yes. Okay. You can hear me. Right. Thanks, Ruby. Right. Great. Okay. I think then, if that's the case, I'll start again. This is great, isn't it? I remember when I was, I'm off and running. I remember when I was about 3 or 4 years of age, there was a program on the radio. Don't think we had even television very much in those days. It was a long time ago. A program on the radio called Listen with Mother. And it used to begin exactly the same way every day. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Okay, so that's it. If you're sitting comfortably, I'm going to begin. Victoria, thank you. Yes, great stuff. And we're all sitting comfortably. Right, start again. Here we go. Brothers and sisters. We've all got them and we all love them to bits. But the one thing we do mostly is argue, fight, shout, scream, wind each other up. No, of course not. We wouldn't do that. Tantrums, yeah, sometimes. Do we sometimes play nicely? Well, yes, of course we do. But not very often. Not very often. Be honest, we don't. It's much more fun riling your brother or sister, winding them up and getting a good reaction out of them. So, my stories are about a family of 5 children. Right, I'm looking for there we go. This is my first book. Those Kids Next Door. Okay, we've set them up there with a background of a police measurement scale. Give you some idea of the chaos they cause. These children are trouble magnets. They don't go looking for trouble. They just find it constantly and consistently. This is my second book. Okay, so just to prequel a question, how many have you written? I've written 2. 2 books. Okay, so book 1 is the one we're going to discuss mostly today. It's about a family of 5 children living in a city without a dad. And that's because Dad is in the SAS. The SAS is a secret army service. And they go all over the world protecting people, saving presidents and prime ministers from anyone who wants to kidnap them and hold them to ransom. The SAS is a famous fighting outfit from the United Kingdom, famous all over the world. And Dad is in the SAS. He's always away, they never see him. So Ma has to look after all of the children on her own. Okay. Now, five and a half years ago, this story did not exist. That's when I began to think about it. And it began as a few observations of my 2 grandsons, Barney and Franklin. They were always getting into some kind of mischief, trouble. You name it, they found it and explored it. If you wanted anything broken, spilled, lost or ripped, you'd invite these 2 around to your house without fail, immediately, because they were experts at it. And I began, about that time, I bought an iPad and I began messing about, writing bits and bobs down about the things that they did, the things that they said. And I read it back to them, and I invented a couple of names. Barney became Sylvester after the Rocky films, Sylvester Stallone, and Franklin became Tyrone after Tyrone in Coronation Street, because Ma in the story loves Coronation Street, and Ma and Dad in the story love Rocky Balboa and the Rocky films. So those are the two grandsons who caused most of the problems. Hello from Eden. Hi. So I also have a little granddaughter called Hattie, and at that stage she was very young. So we invented her as the baby of the family. They call her the Bab, and her name is Beyonce. Obviously, she's named after a well-known singer that Ma likes to play her songs regularly. So we've got Beyonce, we've got Tyrone, we've got Sylvester. And then I invented two characters. These are the two characters I invented: Channing and Orlando. They don't look it, but in the story, they are twins, 10-year-old twins. Orlando's the oldest by 7 minutes. And of course, he never ceases to stop saying, "I'm the oldest. I make all the decisions. You do as you're told," to Channing. Channing wants to write stories, do her homework, learn her spellings, learn her tables, go to school, enjoy being with her mates. All the things that Orlando hates. So I developed a nice little conflict here between the elder siblings. That was the idea. So that's where we arrived at the stories. And I had no intention of writing a story. Hello, Stephen Winnie, nice to see you with us. Lexi, hi. I had no idea that these would become a story. I'd read them to the grandchildren, and they'd laugh and they'd tell me about other things they've done, and I'd put those into a story and read them back. And eventually my family said, "Why don't you get these published?" And I said, "Because it's not very good. I don't think it's good enough to be a book." And we kind of had a discussion about that, and eventually I said, "You know what, I'm going to try." And after 54 turn downs, I found a publisher, Candy Jar Books Limited in Cardiff, accepted my first draft. We spent a long time editing it and making it into a decent story. And I want to give you an example now of the sorts of things that the two boys would be doing, and I turned into a story. This is absolutely true. After breakfast, Ma sent the children back to their rooms to wash and do their teeth and to change out of their pyjamas into their clothes. Sylvester and Tyrone left the bathroom together and went to their room to get dressed. Now, just as Sylvester was taking his pyjama bottoms off, Tyrone pushed him off balance, the way you do, and for a few seconds Sylvester lay stark naked on the floor, before leaping up and pushing Tyrone over. Ma arrived at the door to see the two boys wearing nothing, absolutely nothing, but a smile. They were starkers. "Oh my goodness," she wailed. "That's not a pretty sight. Now pack it in, you two. Get your pants on. I'll be back in 2 minutes." You know, the way moms do with children all the time. "Get it changed and I'll be back." 2 minutes later, Ma, thinking that it had gone a bit quiet, went back to their room to see how they were getting on. Remember, this is a true story. It ended up in the book. She entered the room to see both boys still undressed except for their underpants. But they were not wearing them where they should be. They were both wearing them on their heads. They were standing by their beds with their hands to their foreheads, saluting. Ma couldn't help it. She laughed hysterically. "You told us to get our pants on, Ma, but you didn't tell us where to put them," said Sylvester, giggling. They all laughed again, and this was one of those moments when Ma thought about taking a photo on her phone. Then she decided against it. Not a pretty sight. "Okay, you two, let's get you dressed before we're all late for school," she said, and she began to help Tyrone into his clothes. Now there we are. That's an example of the kind of things that I write about. My two grandchildren and granddaughter, the things that they do, their exploits, and they turn up in my stories. I find it easier to write about things that I've done or seen, people I know, and places that I've been to. I find it easier to do the writing. So, based on the fact now that this family are troublemakers, well, they're not actually. They are trouble magnets. They're trouble magnets. Everywhere they go, trouble finds them. They don't look for it. And they're not nasty kids. They're quite nice. They're nice children. But they just seem to get into trouble everywhere they go. Hello, Mel Woodhouse. Nice to have you with us. So the council have to keep moving this family because they're constantly annoying the neighbours so much that the neighbours ring to the council to say, "We've got trouble again with this family." So the council keep moving them to a new house and a new house and a new house. I'm going to read you the start of the book, which sums up absolutely what these neighbours feel like when the problems arise. It's from a newspaper article that obviously we invented. There we are, the City Echo, the voice of the people. And this is the headline. "Problem families, council must act fast. Protests outside the town hall." The report. "There were protests today over the way the council has handled certain problem families in the city. Hundreds of protesters travelled into the city centre with homemade placards to show the council that more should be done to tackle this problem. The huge crowd of people vented their anger for most of the day outside the town hall. There were shouts of, 'Sort it out or resign.' 'Yeah, go on, get a grip.' 'End this fiasco.' 'You should protect innocent cities.' 'Down with nuisances.' 'We don't like problem families round here.' 'Get this sorted now.' 'We don't like troublemakers.' The shouting and protesting continued non-stop throughout the day, until the Lord Mayor, Mrs. Dulcie Tones, came out onto the balcony overlooking the square. She addressed the crowd. She told them that the council was taking the matter very seriously and were working on a plan to sort it out. "There will be a crackdown," she told the crowd. "We're not going to take this thing lying down. We're working hard and doing everything in our power to eradicate this scourge. Troublemakers will be brought to justice. Most of them will be sorted out without any messing about, and very, very soon. People in the crowd began to cheer and clap, and there were shouts of, "Yeah, back time too." "I'll believe that when I see it," said Mrs. Mona Lott. Her friend Florence Mildew said, "There's just too much of this sort of trouble nowadays. I just hope the crackdown works." Now, that's the start of my book. And before I do another reading for you from that, when I go into schools, or as this morning we do a virtual school lesson, the children want to know, how do you get ideas for the stories? And it's actually quite simple. I work on three things. Number one, people that I know or have seen. Two, places that I've been to, or sometimes seen on the telly. And three, things that I have done or seen, such as the underpants story. Then I change the names, because I find it easier to write about things that I have experience of. So if you're thinking of writing stories, write about people you know, places you've been to, things you've done or seen, and change the names. Then it becomes your story. You wouldn't know about my grandsons and the underpants. You've just read it in a book. You didn't know it was a true fact. So I use things that I've done and seen. Okay, so I don't know if we've got any young children watching or not, but my books, my stories are about children and the kind of things that children like to do and laugh about. This is a chapter called Extraordinary Eggs, and it's about one of the neighbours just down the road from the Shufflet family. "I'm fed up with these pigeons, Ava," Florence Mildew declared. She was leaning on the fence talking to Mrs. Grumpold. They've been neighbours and friends now for nearly 32 years. "They've recently started to sit on my bedroom windowsill above my front door." She pushed her scarf up. Underneath the scarf, she got loads of hair curlers. Ava could never remember a time when Florence did not wear those curlers. It was as if she was always getting ready to go somewhere important and to have her hair looking marvellous. But she never went anywhere important. "They keep pooing and it drops down on the floor outside my front door." She pushed the scarf up once more. "I slipped in that poo yesterday, you know. I nearly fell over and did myself a nasty. There's 6 pigeons, 6 of them, all in a line. I don't know why they sit there all day pooing." Now, Orlando and Sylvester were on the other side of the fence with their brother Tyrone and Channing, and they were playing cricket. Channing loved cricket, but Sylvester was the best batsman. Orlando could hear the conversation between the two ladies. "Shh, shh," he said. "Shh, listen, shh. She's talking about somebody pooing." They all laughed and sat down with their backs to the fence listening. "Are you feeding them, Flo?" Mrs. Grumpold asked. "Because, you know, that'll encourage them, you know that." "Of course I'm not feeding them. Do I look that stupid?" Well, Ava Grumpold studied her friend very hard, thinking, yeah, you do look that stupid sometimes, but she decided not to say it. "Well, They must have a reason for sitting there. They're not having choir practice, are they? She said. It's not a laughing matter, Ava. They could poo on me when I go out. The three boys on the other side of the fence began to giggle. The poo would get stuck in her curlers, Orlando said, and Tyrone thought that was very funny. I'm frightened in case I leave the house and they all poo together. Well, this made both the ladies laugh, and the Shufflet children behind the fence were now hysterical. They sit facing the road, then when they want to poo, they turn around and dangle their bums over the edge, and down it plops. On my path. Florence looked dismayed and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Ava hooted like an owl, and she was laughing wildly now. And in the next door garden, Orlando was having a great time. Plopping poos, he said. They are poo-plopping pigeons having a proper poo-plopping festival. Everybody laughed. It's a poo fest, said Sylvester, and they all joined in. Poo fest, poo fest. What am I going to do, Ava? Florence asked, exasperated. That's the start of the chapter. The boys decide they can help, quite accidentally, to get rid of the problem for Mrs. Mildew. So I'm going to skip just a little bit now, move on to show you that the boys are actually nice kids who enjoy helping people out. Later, Orlando and Sylvester went for a walk. They were going to go to the park. But as they went past Mrs. Mildew's house, she appeared on the doorstep, looking nervously upwards at the pigeons. Hey, lads, would you be kind enough and go to the shop for me and I'll give you 50p, she called. Hi, Michelle. Nice to see you watching. Hope you're enjoying. Oh, yeah, they answered straight away. They're like 50p. What do you want? I need some eggs and a loaf of bread. And this is the picture that Terry Cooper, the artist, wrote for that story. So you can see them, the pigeons there, look, and Mrs. Mildew, and all the mess on the front door step. They walked down the path to the front door, staring up at the windowsill, hoping not to get pooed on. The 6 pigeons sat looking down at them. Carefully, Orlando took the money and the bag from Mrs. Mildew, and they ran back up the path just in time to miss 2 plops. On the way back from the shop, they began talking about the pigeons. Why don't we scare them off for her? Orlando suggested. It's a real shame, you know. She's so fed up with them, isn't she? Yeah, well, that's a good idea, said Sylvester, but how? I'm not sure. Maybe we could make loud noises. Or we could use a stick, said Sylvester, to frighten them off. We could knock them off with a stick. Well, it would need to be a very long stick, said Orlando. By now they'd arrived back at Mrs. Mildew's house, and they stood halfway down the path, looking up at the pigeons. The pigeons stared back at the 2 boys. There was a staring contest. I know, said Sylvester. Why don't we throw stones at them? And he picked up a whopper from the garden. No, don't be silly. You might break the window if you miss. I won't miss. I'm a good thrower, you know that. Okay, so you'll injure the pigeon. That's not a good idea, Sylvester. No, we need something soft that will scare them but won't hurt them or break the window. He began to look around. Anything suitable? Sylvester had the answer and was beginning to open the box of eggs, grinning. Orlando turned round and saw what he was doing. Great idea, he shouted, and Sylvester launched the first egg up at the pigeons. It splattered harmlessly on the wall by the side of the sill, and the pigeons looked down at them pretty smugly. Is that your best shot? Bad luck, Sylvie, Orlando murmured, knowing that would wind him up, because Orlando has got nicknames for Sylvester. He calls him Sylvie or Sylvia, and Sylvester does not like that. It makes him very, very cross. Sylvester, yelled Sylvester. My name's Sylvester. And he launched the second egg. It soared between two pigeons and smashed against the window. One pigeon turned around and dropped a plop as if to say, is that your best shot? Orlando encouraged him to greater accuracy. Go on, you can do this. Sylvester gave the next egg his full concentration, taking deliberate aim. But it smashed against the sill that the pigeons were sitting on. Oh, he said in frustration. Missed again. He threw two more eggs, but they both crashed against the window and drizzled down as a gooey mess. Oh! He carefully picked up the last egg, calmed himself, and took a deep breath. This time, I'll get you, he yelled. And he hurled the egg at the two pigeons right in the middle. It hit one of the pigeons full on the chest and shattered. They all flapped up and away into the sky, and Sylvester made a high fist and he went, yes! Great shot, Sylvester, Orlando yelled, and he slapped him on the back. There were no pigeons on the windowsill now. None. So they knocked the door very confidently, and Mrs. Mildew opened it anxiously, looking up. Don't worry, Mrs. Mildew, said Orlando. We've got rid of them pigeons for you. They won't poo on you again. He was jubilant. How'd you know? How'd you know? What did you do? Come out here. Come out. Come and have a look, Orlando announced proudly. They are gone. And he beckoned her to come out. And come on, it's okay, it's safe now. Slowly, hesitantly, Florence Mildew came out of her front door and looked up to see that all the pigeons were, in fact, gone. A nervy smile began to appear on her face. But when she saw the mess all over her window and the wall and the windowsill, she put her hand to her mouth. What have you done with my eggs? She exclaimed. The boys looked at each other, dropped the bag with the bread, and ran. Later that day, Mrs. Mildew called at the house of those kids next door to have a word with their mother. Hope you enjoy that. Lexi Myers, hi. Saz Thomas, hi, but no eggs. Right, so I hope you're enjoying your time. Apologies for the late start. If you want to, we've got a few more minutes, we can carry on. If you want to stay with me, I'm quite happy. The one thing I haven't really done yet is read to you how the council finally move them from the city. They actually buy a house way out in the countryside. In fact, just inside the Welsh border, miles from anywhere. Their only neighbours would now be cows and sheep. And Jenny Powys is watching, not far from Powys. This story takes place. Hi, Jenny. So they move out into the country to this massive big house. And the council is just too pleased to get rid of them and get rid of all the moaning and the neighbours complaining about them. And they move into this fantastic, huge house. And that in itself, getting them there, presents all sorts of problems to the delivery drivers. But when they get into the house, there's so many bedrooms and bathrooms they can't believe it. But would you believe the fact that they end up fighting and arguing over one bedroom? Well, of course you'd believe it. Of course you would, because there wouldn't be a story if we didn't have arguments and fighting. So this is chapter 20. Beat it. It's mine. They're sorting out new rooms for themselves. So here we go. It was chaos. Everyone except Ma and baby Beyonce was shouting, arguing, carrying toys and games, trying to stick up posters and moving bedding and pillows from one room to another. They bumped into each other in doorways and on the landing. Then they argued and shouted some more. Channing began moving her stuff into one of the rooms, only for Orlando to move it out and put it into another room. "Orlando," she screamed, "put that back. It's mine and I'm having that room." "No, you're not. Beat it. It's mine," he yelled back. "I'm the oldest." "No, it isn't your room. I saw it first, so it's mine. You were downstairs sorting through your box of toys." Now, while the twins were having this argument, Sylvester took the chance to move his toys into that room instead. "You can get them out of there," roared Orlando when he saw what Sylvester was doing. "That's my room." "It's mine," said Channing. Tyrone appeared on the landing carrying his little teddy. Which room is mine? I want to put Teddy to bed. He's getting really tired." Everyone stopped, looked at him, stared for several seconds in total silence, and then carried on shouting at each other. Tyrone quietly went back downstairs to join Ma and Beyonce in the kitchen. "Look," shouted Orlando, "I'm the oldest, so I get to pick first." "Only by 7 minutes," Channing yelled back. "That's got nothing to do with this. You always say the same thing when you want your own way. I'm the oldest." "Yeah," said Sylvester. "You've always got the same excuse. I'm the oldest." "What's it got to do with you, silly?" Orlando said in his best mocking voice. Silly was one of the 3 nicknames he loved calling Sylvester. "My name's Sylvester, not Silly," Sylvester shouted. "Silly, silly, silly," said Orlando, knowing that it would wind him up even more. "It's not silly," countered Sylvester, and he launched himself at Orlando. The two of them fell to the floor and began wrestling on the landing. Channing seized the opportunity, stepped over the 2 writhing bodies and carried her things back into the room. "Stupid boys," she said. In the kitchen, Ma had finished preparing lunch. She could hear the noise coming from upstairs, but she decided to ignore it. She was in charge. She knew exactly who was going to go where. A loud bump forced her to abandon the kitchen. Right, Orlando, Channing, Sylvester, get down here now. Your lunch is ready. Nothing happened. The silence was broken only by the sound of the two wrestlers, writhing and grunting, and by now hanging over the top step of the staircase. They were perilously close to rolling down. I don't want to have to count to three, Ma shouted, using the best Sergeant Major voice. One, the fight broke up immediately. Two, the two boys flew down the stairs. Three, and they entered the kitchen. Can I say thank you so much for being with me today. I hope you've enjoyed. If you would like to know any more about Those Kids Next Door, it's very simple. Go to the website thosekidsnextdoor.com and you can see other stories that I've written there, as well as Those Kids Next Door. Thank you for your time. I hope you've enjoyed. I've certainly enjoyed reading my stories to you, and I've got to say bye-bye. So thank you all very much. I'm going to press the finish button here now, and I think that ends the session. Okay, Laura Smith, Linda, Tony Cliff, thank you. Thank you to everybody. Okay, bye.